Welcome to episode 2 of Built in the Nordics. I've got a guest here today, as you can see. We've got Jiten Chavda, founder of Expat Finance Sweden. I think a lot of the people watching this may already know Jit. If you've ever moved country and suddenly realised that you've got no idea what happens to the pensions, taxes, investments, inheritance, the sexy stuff, or even basic banking, then Jiten's built a business around helping people to figure that stuff out. So, Jiten, how are you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you. Been a good day. The weather's getting better. Well, not
You
today.
sure?
Well, not today. Last night.
We had a power cut last night. It was chucking it down in
Really?
Ingerö. Yeah.
We had thunderstorms here last night, but apart from that, it was only for about an hour. But yes, apart from that, no, things are going well. Can't complain.
Good. Well, look, fellow Brit, I met yourself, Jit, probably a couple of years back now at a sort of a networking event.
That's
so
right.
I know you already. Fellow Gooner,
Yeah.
which is a good timing to talk very briefly about the mighty Arsenal. And I heard you're off somewhere special at the weekend.
That's right. I'm going to the Champions League this weekend with my son. So it should be a fun weekend just to go there and be there for hopefully the second trophy.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. So yes, I'm looking forward to that. So it's been a good thing. And we've got the World Cup to look forward to as well.
Brilliant, isn't it?
That's
what a couple of weeks of
I know. It's been a bit frightening though, because at one point I thought Arsenal weren't going to make it, but then they pulled it through in the end, which is good.
Yeah.
So it was
just a shame that we didn't see Tottenham go the other way. But you can't have it all, Jit. You can't have it all.
No, I'm not sure if I wanted Tottenham, because it's nice to have Tottenham there because it's quite competitive, especially when Tottenham play Arsenal. So
sometimes,
sometimes,
not recently.
Yeah. Not exactly. Yeah, so it's been good. Can't complain. So,
well, good. Look, the purpose of these pods is for me to try and get as much exposure as possible for expats that have moved over to Sweden, ultimately founded or running a business here. It's a really tricky market in the Nordics to find a job, first of all. So it's just to shine a light on people that have done their own way and share some great news stories of what's working, what maybe hasn't quite worked. And also for yourself to get more people to get eyes on you, Jiten, as well, and to understand what you're doing. So whereabouts in the UK are you from?
Crouch End, North London. That's where
there you go.
Yeah, right next to Tottenham and Arsenal, right in the middle of it all. So it ended up being Arsenal. It just had to be.
Yeah, was it a toss of a coin or a family decision?
Family thing. It was a family thing. I think we all supported Arsenal beforehand anyway, but moving there made it much easier to support Arsenal. But it was great though. It's a lovely area. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time living down there. It was fun. So yeah, Crouch End. Before that, I was in West London. Before that, I was in Kenya, born in Kenya, actually. Don't know if I told you that, Tony.
Didn't know that. No.
Born in Kenya, came over to the UK when I was 7. So most of my life's been in the UK. But yeah, so I've sort of lived in 3 different countries. Kenya.
So what happened from Kenya to North London to Sweden? Why Sweden, of all the places?
Well, from Kenya to the UK, it was mainly because my father decided that UK was going to give us more opportunities than Kenya. And then I met a Swedish woman who I met in south of France, believe it or not. But she moved in with me in the UK. And then she said, let's try Sweden out for 1 year. So I said, okay, let's try it out. So in 2004, I decided, let's move to Sweden for 1 year. But within a short space of time, she'd found a lovely piece of land by the sea and said, imagine building a house here. We couldn't do that in the UK. Imagine doing that here. And then everything started rolling in, and bringing kids up in Sweden is perfect. So if you've got kids, Sweden's a perfect place to bring up kids compared to the UK. So the next thing you know, I'm here, got 2 more kids. I've got 3 kids in total. And the rest, as they say, is history. We did move back to the UK for 1 year just to get it out of our system. And we realized when we were in the UK that we didn't want to live in the UK anymore. For the children, better to be in Sweden. Much, much better. And the children were looking forward to coming back to Sweden after 1 year.
Yeah, so 1 year turned into 22 and counting.
Exactly it, yes. So it's been a few years now. So that's why I know the Swedish system relatively well. So the education system, my kids have been through the whole education system. My oldest has done military service. The middle one's about to do military service. I know about gymnasiums. And so I know the education system and how that works here as well. So sometimes it's nice to give people ideas on how about doing this and how about doing that.
So many people that I know, Jit, who moved to Sweden for 1 year. Let's let's test it out, see what it's like, and then like myself, 2014, so pushing 12 years now, or just gone 12 years.
It's the same for you. It's strange though, because living in a country, because I don't live right in the centre of Stockholm, I just live on the outskirts. But it's a brilliant place to bring kids up. But from a social aspect of it, it's great to be in the centre of Stockholm. I wish I was in the centre of Stockholm, but it wouldn't have been good for the kids.
No,
But still,
no.
no complaints. Absolutely no complaints. But that's why Sweden for my wife. Just a brief rundown about my background. My background's been financial service for over 30 years. I started off in the UK, had my own company in 2000, couple of partners in the company. Then we had 30 advisors, and it just got to a point where the pressure was too much. I was working long hours. I had a young son at the time, wasn't seeing my son, and it just got to a point where I thought enough is enough. So I decided to give up the partnership. And then I remember going home, actually, it was a Thursday, and I was home at 12 o'clock, and my wife said to me, "What are you doing at home at 12 o'clock on a Thursday?" I said, "I've quit." And she said, "What?" I said, "I've quit." She goes, "What are we going to do for money and everything?" I said, "Don't worry, we've got enough money." And then I was offered a job in Dubai, and she said it was too hot. Then I was offered a job in Singapore. No, yeah, in Singapore, and she said it was too far. And then that's when the Sweden thing came aboard. So let's try Sweden out for a year. And that's what I did. First 7 years was flying backwards and forwards, taking care of UK clients. Passed my UK clients over to colleagues of mine in the UK, and then I started building up a client base here in Sweden. So
What
generally,
company? Where was you at who was you working for in London? So, and you're focused on the same type of thing, just financial advice for Brits.
when I moved, when I gave up my UK clients and came over to Sweden, I've been doing the same principle as I had been doing in the UK. Take care of people's short-term goals, mid-term goals, long-term goals, take care of their taxes. They've always got one person they can go and contact. That's the key. See, what I've realized over the time in the UK and in Sweden is most people don't have financial advisors. They don't talk to anybody. They just try to work it out themselves, especially at the moment now with, AI and everything. People Google it. And half the time, the results they're getting isn't the results that they need. They need a personal person to talk to. The better I get to know clients, the better I can help clients. But that's how it all developed.
Yeah, it's interesting you say I bank with Nordea. So now, obviously, I've had conversations with yourself. I bank with Nordea. If I log into my Nordea app, it tells me I have a contact. So when I log into my about or whatever it is, my account, it says, okay, your personal contact is whoever it might be,
Yeah.
Sven Larsen. I've never heard of Sven. And I've also got that person changes probably every couple of months.
Yeah.
I've been here for 10 years now, 12 years. Not once has anybody reached out to me from Nordea to actually ask me anything about my finances. So I am, as you mentioned, in the unknown, whereas I'm pretty sure in the UK, you could go through whether it could be a broker, it could be an accountancy firm, it could be whoever, but there's typically someone always fighting for your business. And that's not the way it is maybe here.
It's in Sweden. What happens is if you've got over £500,000, then you'll get a personal advisor. That's what generally happens. So you need £500,000 for that. However, as you've said, the advisor doesn't stay there for that long. So the relationship breaks up. Some cases you do get an advisor staying there for long periods of time, but generally you don't. And they don't give you a call to say, look, things are changing. So you need to do X, Y, and Z. All they'll do is they'll say, you've got the money in the account. How about investing the money where you're going to get a better return? That's about it. And the other problem I actually found because I did exactly the same thing. I went to the bank. I said, can you advise me? And what they did was they said, oh, we think you should do this type of investment. I said, what sort of investment should I pick? Oh, no, here's a sheet of paper. You pick the investments you want. I said, but, okay, I know about it, but most people don't know how to pick investments. So how do they pick it? And people get stuck. People get stuck. People get,
It's a good point. Like we have in my job, we have a pension fund, and it's one of the biggest in Sweden. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago from the person that looks after our company pension. I don't know how to explain it, but they came in. We had a big meeting in English, and then they submitted us some paperwork after to read more about the fund we had. It was all in Swedish. Now, of course, we're in Sweden. Ideally, we all speak Swedish, but we didn't. The website is in Swedish.
Yeah.
So when I asked the question, do you have anything here in English? The answer was no. And this is one of the largest companies in Sweden for looking after pensions. Zero English support. So again, this sort of comes into the conversation hopefully we're going to have. There is help on hand for people who A, have no idea what they're doing, and B, haven't quite mastered the Swedish language.
You've hit an important thing there, because a lot of people, when it comes to pensions, pension actually will end up being the second biggest pot you're going to have in your entire life. The first will be your property, probably. The second will be your pension. Generally speaking, that's what ends up happening. The problem with people with pensions is if you've got 20 years to go to retirement, you don't even review it. Most people don't even look at it. And the thing is, over the last 5 years, as you've probably gathered, we've had Ukraine war, we've had Trump, we've had tariffs, we've had Iran war. All that is making an impact on your investment. So the idea is to monitor your investment. So if before things happen, you can actually move your investment so you're getting the best returns from your investment. Most people don't do that. They just leave it and forget about it. The idea is to keep on top of it. And that's why if you've got a pension advisor in the UK, in Sweden, you should actually contact them at least once a year and sit down with them on a face-to-face basis and review your pension just to make sure it's going in the right direction. And most people don't.
I guess that's a good caveat. Now, again, at the beginning of this meeting, I sort of explained Expat Finance Sweden is the business that you're working with here. Now, you can guess what it is that you're doing, but if you can just summarize very briefly, what exactly are you helping people with within the business?
There's three main areas I look after: the short, medium, and long-term goals. The short-term goals fit into three categories, three main categories. The first category is if you've got cash, where is your cash? Is it earning you interest? And most people leave it in their own bank. You'd probably leave it with Nordea. Nordea have on the savings account, it's about 1% interest you'll get on that. Okay. Now, what you should have is enough money for emergencies. We're expats, we need to make sure that if we lose our job or whatever happens in our life, or there's a big emergency, there's money available to you in cash. So where do you put that money? My job is to sit down with you and make sure you're putting the money in the right area and you've got the right amount of money putting into an emergency account. Normally for emergency account, you're looking at about 6 months worth of income. That's the general rule that we aim for. The second area is, if you're expat from the UK, you'll have some knowledge of an ISA. An ISA is a tax efficient savings in the UK. In Sweden, we have a similar type of savings called an ISK. ISK has a limit of 300,000 crowns before you start paying tax. So anything above £300,000, you pay 1% tax. Anything below that, you pay no tax. So if you invested 200,000, it's worth 300,000. Normally, you'd have to pay tax on the profit you made. Within the ISK wrapper, you don't pay any tax above 300,000. So you have a tax-efficient savings. What investment were you going to pick in that? What funds are you going to put? Most people don't know. My job is to give you a portfolio that you can use to invest your money in. But that will be after a conversation you and I would have on what the purpose of that savings is for. So you don't want to be too aggressive. So if it's too aggressive, it means it's going to be too volatile because the markets will affect it. What we want to do is make sure it's not very volatile. So it goes up and down slowly, but over a longer period of time, it'll still give you a better return. So my job is to help you with that as well, to help you with that portfolio. It's normally the same portfolios I use. So when I adjust my portfolio, I'll adjust yours. I'll give you an example. On my portfolio, I've moved away a lot from America because America, unfortunately, is so unstable at the moment. We don't know what the future holds. So it's better to be cautious rather than being aggressive. So it's to monitor those. The third and final area in the short term is people that have got mortgages in Sweden. Most people that have got mortgages in Sweden don't realize a couple of important points. Firstly, you can negotiate rates with the bank. People don't even ask to negotiate with the bank. The second thing you've got is you've got an opportunity to get freebies from the bank. And the sort of freebies I'm talking about is life cover. It's so easy to get life cover with a bank because life cover is so cheap. And most people don't even think of asking the bank, can you also have life cover that in the event of me dying, my mortgage is paid off? The other area is sometimes people don't actually have a very small mortgage. Well, interest rates are low at the moment. Sometimes it's worth borrowing more money to actually invest it so we get a better return than the interest you're paying on your loan. I've just done this for a client. His interest mortgage payments are going to be 1.89% fixed for 6 years. He's got preferential rate, by the way. So what we've done is we've put money aside for the next 6 years worth of payments. So as far as he's concerned, his mortgage hasn't gone up. But the second thing is because he's increasing his mortgage, he gets tax relief on interest payments. And people don't realize you get tax relief on your interest payments. So by paying it off, you're losing out on 30% tax relief.
This is where you come in, Jet. It all
Exactly.
goes over my head. But actually, with the mortgage negotiation, I went back and forward with my partner banks, with Handelsbanken and with Nordea. I just kept pushing back at each other on the rate, and it went from, I think, 2.4 down to 1.94,
Brilliant.
something like that. It was a big drop. I signed in for 2 more years. Should have gone for more, but I think that's the English part of me that is not afraid to ask the question.
That's true.
Whereas with my Swedish partner, she's maybe a bit less inclined to push back, particularly at a bank.
Yes, I totally agree with you. That's why the negotiation, having somebody, and what I often do is I send people a comparison of different mortgage rates of different banks. So you have an indication. So when you go to Handelsbanken, you say, well, Nordea are offering this rate. So, why can't you match that? Often they'll match it.
Mm. Okay. And look, in my day role, as I mentioned, I work at trade, so I'm funding businesses daily to purchase inventory and stock. So I work in this space slightly, not towards
Yeah.
the personal finances, but something we see in the UK is brokers.
Yeah.
So they are everywhere in the UK. Nearly all of the major companies in the UK go for a broker, and that broker's job it is to go out there and find the best possible, well, hopefully the best possible lending solution for their
Yeah.
needs. In Sweden, there's far less of this. You've got
Right.
Lendo, I think it is. You've got a couple of more generic digital platforms that say they're going to find you the best rates, but less on the broker side of
Yeah.
one-to-one conversations with a human. I mean, when you came to Sweden, did you see that as a really big opportunity to
I,
take some market share? How it works in the UK?
I think that the difference here is in the UK, you'd have a broker, because I did mortgages in the UK as well, and you'd have a broker that would help people with their mortgages. But if you wanted a nice, simple mortgage, it was better to go to your bank. You get preferential rates through your bank. Even in the UK, it was only mainly brokers were mainly used for people that had a bit more complicated cases. That's generally what ended up happening. But some brokers would just still have their preferential rates. They would get preferential rates from the banks. So I'll give you an example. Barclays themselves would allocate a certain amount of money for brokers. So they would get preferential rates until that money'd run out. The brokers would be able to give clients preferential rates. So you can mix it between the broker and directly with the bank. In Sweden, the only time brokers really come into play is if you've got bad credit or you've only been in Sweden for a short period of time and you don't have enough of a track record, then you'd go to a broker. So there aren't many brokers here. There are a few, but not like in the UK.
It was like an opportunity, always
It
thinking of
does.
ways.
It does feel like an opportunity, but the problem is that the sort of banks you'd have to go to, the rates that the clients will have to pay are quite high compared to the banks. So often
Mm.
it doesn't work out viable. I've had somebody that's done a mortgage to a broker and their rates have been like six odd percent. Whereas with a bank, they would have got a lot less. It's just that their case wasn't clean. So they're
Yeah.
happy to lend money, but they're taking a bit of a risk. So they're going to charge you higher.
Yeah, and the speed of that as well. So it might not be a clean case, and that's where I see quite often the big banks just don't want to help
They
when
don't
it's
want
not clean. If the computer doesn't instantly say yes, then they're not quite inclined to help. And if they are, it's going to take a very long time. It's different if you investing into open up a mortgage. Maybe you've got a bit more time to play with. But if you need money quickly,
yeah.
then the broker
It's the
set
best
up in the UK is very clever, and it feels like one that we could maybe open up in the Nordics.
I
But
think,
when it comes to the business, then, so if we was to look at 2012, I think you said, how many people in that time, roughly, have you gone to help with their financial
oh God,
planning?
hundreds. Seriously, it's been hundreds. And with some, it'd be hundreds. It would be from the client base, God, probably 500-600 people actually,
Wow.
easily help. Because the thing is, for me, it's not a short-term thing with a client, because I could help somebody now and earn no money from it, but 3, 4, 5 years down the line, they may be an opportunity for me to earn money from it. As long as I help them out now, because my key has always been to make sure short-term, they've got the cushioning they need. They've got to get the foundation done first. Once they've done the foundation, we can invest money in other areas. So it could take time for somebody to get their foundation in place. Because there's no point investing money for other things if you haven't utilized all the tax-free savings.
Mm.
So it's an ongoing process. So
Okay.
it doesn't just stop there. But it leads on to the second and third goals that people have got. Let's say we fully utilize all the short-term goals. We've taken care of the deposit account, the ISK, and the mortgage. And you've got surplus cash left on that. Again, you and I would have a conversation. When do you need that money? You might say, we might need it 10 years from now. Okay, we put that investment somewhere else where you can access that money in 10 years in the most tax efficient way. And also for children's savings. A lot of people don't realize they use their bank for their children's savings. And in children's savings that you have in Sweden, you've got two main types. One is where a child has full control over it when they reach the age of 18. So you can save money for your child, and if your child ends up being not a very nice child, at the age of 18, he's got access to all that money. Or the second type you can have it under your name, then you give it to the kids when the kids reach a certain age, and you have control over it. So it's a good way of balancing it out. With my children, they've asked me to take care of their investments. So I take care of their investments for them. So that's the second goal that you're looking at. The third and final goal I help people with is their long-term savings, their pension mainly. Now, most expats will have, believe it or not, minimum four different pensions. They'll have a UK state pension, Swedish state pension, a Swedish private pension or company pension, and a UK private or company pension. Well, how do we merge all those together? What are the advantages of merging them together? What are the disadvantages? So the idea is to review all that and keep on top of it, making sure we're heading in the right direction. Because part of that whole system is people that are earning reasonable incomes in Sweden, they can even do what they call a salary sacrifice. So they can take some of their income off where they're paying 50% tax and have that money invested in a pension for them. So you basically get 50% tax relief on your pension contributions.
Yeah, that came up in the meeting we had with the pension company a few weeks ago. And it's something, again, that there was lots of interest in. However, I don't know how much action. So I left that meeting thinking, oh, yeah, I should do that. And I haven't, I sent one email and then I didn't do anything else with it. But with the business is Expat Finance. So there's a clue in the name here of the type of customers that you tend to help. Obviously we're both British, but in terms of a rough percentage, what nationalities are currently within your portfolio?
I think it's mainly British people. I've got a few people that are Spanish and French and German that are living here, but not many. It's mainly been expats that I've been helping out. But I do help out people from other countries as well, especially people that have worked in different countries around Europe. If you worked, a year or 2 years in Germany, 5 years in France, guess what? When it comes to your retirement, you can add all those little pots together. And people don't realize you can do that. So yes, it's mainly British people that I've been helping out with, but there's been a few people from other countries as well.
Yeah. Have you seen a spike in the need for your services after Brexit? Has that come with more uncertainty, which has been like, okay, now's the time I should talk to an advisor?
It has been, because what seems to happen is since Brexit, a UK advisor can't advise you because you're based in Sweden, and I can't advise you on your investment in the UK because you're based here and your investments in the UK. Before Brexit, I could do both. It wasn't a problem. But since Brexit, because Britain isn't part of the EU, I can't advise on your UK investments. But you can do things with your UK investments and move them away from them that then I can't advise you on them.
Okay.
But the UK ones are difficult.
Yeah. And if you lined up all of these 500 or 600 people that you've helped in your time in the business, if you could think of one thing that is a common thread, like, okay, I wish I knew that before. Is there something that jumps out at you that you always hear? I had no idea about that. I wish I knew it 5 years ago.
I think the thing that people get stuck with is moving out of the UK without planning it before they come here. Because as soon as you're here and you've got assets in the UK and you want to sell them, you're liable for tax here. Even though you're not liable for tax in the UK, because you're a tax resident here, you're liable for that. So there's things you can put into place before you move out that you're not going to be liable for tax here. A simple example is if there's a property in the UK and you're thinking of selling it, you're better off selling it before you move here. Because otherwise you're going to pay capital gains tax on the property here on the property that you sell there. So you can avoid capital gains tax by doing that. So planning, if you're moving away from the UK and moving to Sweden, is important. You've got to plan it a little bit more before you move away from the UK. So that's one mistake I've seen people make. The other mistake I've seen people make here in Sweden is they don't sit down and talk to anybody about their total finances, what they should be doing, the emergency account. They'll just plod along. They'll leave their money in their current account and they won't even utilize their tax-free savings either. That's one thing I've seen people do a lot of, where they just keep their money in cash. The other issue I've seen mistakes people have made is people have brought all their money into Sweden and converted to SEK. That's not always the best option. You're better off leaving some of the money in sterling and some of the money that you need here in Sweden in SEK. Because believe it or not, if you've got money in sterling and you want it in cash, you get a better interest rate than you do in SEK. In SEK, the best interest rate I can get is 2.5%. But in sterling, I can get 3.5%.
Okay, weird. Yeah, and also, and this is like a learnings that I had when I came here naively 12 years ago. I sent over quite a bit of money and I did it on the currency. 12 years ago, it was basically 10 to the pound.
Yeah.
And look, I think it went up to 15 6 months ago. I lost a fortune. And of course, you don't think about those things. You can't time your move based on currency FX rate.
No.
But it's one of those I look back and go, oh my God, why did I not? If I just waited a little bit, I would have got an extra 50%
Yeah.
off of my money than what I did when I moved.
But that's the key. That's why keep the money in sterling, because it's in sterling already. And then what you can do is you can either do it in small stages, so you're averaging it out, or just bring the money that you need for that month every month. That's it. Leave the rest of the money there. At least you're earning 3.5% in there.
Yeah, and let's say there's a few thousand people that go on to watch this across the shorts that we're going to edit and the longer clip and through LinkedIn. If there's someone watching this who has no intention to talk to you or has no intention to seek real advice, but if you could give them one thing that they should probably look at today as a priority, what would that be? Would it be the pensions? Would it be the interest rates on the savings accounts? Like, where would you focus one thing on for them?
I think if it's initially, if it's the first time I'm meeting them, the first thing I would do is make sure they've got enough emergency money. That will be the first priority. Make sure they've got enough. Alongside that, one of the other things that I do deal with is people's pensions, because I don't know if you're aware that if you've got a pension in the UK and you want it managed properly and you want it to be flexible for you, to move that pension, the process is quite long-winded. So normally I try to get the pension side of it working in the background, then take care of all the other bits and pieces. Because pension transfers can take up to a year, believe it or not.
Yeah, and it's far cleaner in Sweden. Like when I go to my pension or min pension here, I see everything. It's super nice. It gives me a nice forecast. It tells me who I am today. It's very clean. I have been looking into my UK pensions. I've been collating them, and they're not huge, but it's just a massive pain in the ass, if I'm honest. In trying to, some of the businesses are no longer trading, so it's like I need to go and find who was looking after that particular fund. So yeah, it's a pain.
It makes life easier to move it away from the UK. I've had 3 clients that have been trying to draw from the UK pension. They're not moving the pension. They're living in Sweden and they want to draw, and they're retiring now. They want to draw on their UK pension. How difficult that is when you're based here is not straightforward. It's not straightforward.
So I guess moving on from that part as well, if there is a Brit moving over from London, they come to Sweden, they've been here for a couple of years. Is there like a financial system in Sweden that is very hard to understand for an expat? Of course, we've got Bank ID, but is there anything else that really confuses people that you talk to?
I think the main thing that confuses people when it comes to tax-free savings, because they all understand they should do it, but they just don't know where to invest the money. I think that's where people struggle a lot more than anything else. And then because they're not sure about how it works, guess what? They don't do it. They don't even bother using the tax-free savings that they're entitled to.
Mm.
I think that's the thing I notice people don't really understand it. They don't understand where they should invest the money. And also, a good question, actually, because I think most people don't know why they're saving money. Sounds silly, I know. If you said to me, Jen, I'm going to save 10,000, equivalent to £10,000. Okay, why? What do you need it for? If you told me I need it for 10 years, because 10 years down the line, because I want to buy a flash car or something, it could be anything, right? Then guess what? We have a purpose for the savings. So guess what? The investment will be equivalent to a 10-year savings, because that's when you want the money. It's having the savings for the right reason. I have people saving money in the bank, in a savings account, and they might have £500,000 in there. I said, why have you got that? You know what they say? Well, just in case.
Yeah.
And it's in the wrong place. Isn't that too much, £500,000? Do you not think you need less than that? Then we invest that money in a longer term investment. So we're spreading the risk. So people don't understand how they should actually manage their money in the short, medium, and long term. Have a
Okay.
specific goal. Have a
Yeah,
specific
and
goal.
also, I don't want to focus too much on this particular point, but I think it's important to cover it. Is I'm getting older. You know, the bulk of the people that do live in Sweden as an expat, particularly post Brexit, are probably in a certain age range. I would
40s,
guess
50s, yeah. 40s.
most people watching this 40 to 60 or
Yeah.
30 to 60, something like that. So we've got parents that are becoming elderly. They're all based probably in their native country. They haven't probably moved with them. Some have, but most haven't. And one of the things I see a lot on some of the Facebook forums is the inheritance tax,
Yeah.
like planning for this as well. Is this something that every expat should be
Yes.
really taking ownership of?
Yes, definitely. I come across it more and more frequently now that the client's parents have passed away, or the mother's passed away, the father's passed away, and we've got an inheritance tax to deal with. A lot of people, I've dealt with quite a few here, and even in my own personal case, when my mother passed away, you always think everything's straightforward when you pass away. There won't be any issues. But believe it or not, between siblings, there's always issues, unfortunately. Unfortunately. And just this morning, I had a meeting with somebody whose sister and the other siblings are arguing about the mother's estate. And it's really, really messy. So the idea is to talk to the parents beforehand. There's a couple of things you can do. You can put things into trust and so forth. So talk to the parents beforehand to find out how much their estate is worth. It's a difficult question, I know, but it's something very, very important that you've got to do. Once you start having that conversation, there's things you can put into place before that person passes away that will make it much easier for you to deal with probate. Much, much, much easier. So it's an important thing to talk about. Because as you said, people talk about inheritance. Oh, I'm going to inherit some money from my parents. Do I have to pay tax on it and so forth? You know, you don't have to pay tax on it, by the way. But a lot of people think you do. But the idea is to
I thought you
make
did.
sure
Yeah.
that the thing that you've got to make sure that the parents' estate is in the cleanest possible way as you can. Because parents can gift things. If they've got too much money, they can gift things across to you now while they're alive. And there's a few tax things we need to be aware of, but there's so many different things you can do. And now also rules are changing next year, which a lot of people may not be aware of. But come 2027, all your UK assets, including your pension, will be put into the inheritance tax pot. So even if you're based here and you've got a pension in the UK, that gets put into the probate pot. There's nothing you can do about it. So if you pass away, there could be a tax, as long as it's below 325,000 if you're single, then there's no tax
Okay.
liability. But again, you can do things about it. You can do things with it to
Look, I
move
think
it along.
it's a subject that's becoming more real for a lot of people that I talk to anyway.
The other thing you may be coming across with people that haven't really looked at the UK national insurance. UK is one of the only countries where you can actually make voluntary contributions to get extra years. In
Is
Sweden,
it
you
10
can't.
years? You need 10 years contribution
10 years minimum to get a
minimum.
UK
Yeah.
state pension, and you need to aim for 35 years, then you'll get the maximum state pension. So
Yeah.
anywhere between 10 and 35 years, you'll get a proportion of the maximum state pension.
Yeah, I saw that because I've done, I think it was 12 when I looked. So I just crept over the minimum, which is what I was hoping I would be able to at least get to. I think there's a big difference between 10 and 35 years, of course.
But there is,
But
but
yeah, maybe that's,
the thing is now you can go back 6 years and still fill up 6 years, the last 6 years. So you could actually get to, 18 years. And that'll make a big difference to your retirement, by the way. It'll
there
make
you
a big
go.
difference.
One to look at. And I think for, this conversation, I'm really hoping that people are listening to this and thinking this is super like relevant to me today. It's quite a niche audience that we're hopefully talking to.
I
It's
hope so.
expats in Sweden or the Nordics. I'm sure rules are similar-ish
Yeah,
across the
similar.
Nordics, not identical, I'm sure, but similar-ish. And these are all things that is going to be relevant at some
Yeah.
point soon, or if not previously. So we've gone through some of the inheritance tax is obviously a tough one, but for the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes as we see this discussion out, probably slightly more lighthearted. I'm interested in your experience as a founder, an expat founder in Sweden, and then we're going to finish off with some quick questions and answers from you as
Love
well.
it.
But as an expat jet, now I spoke to Aaron, the CEO of Hawaii Pokey, on my last meeting
Yeah.
and my last
Sure, yeah.
discussion, and we went through some of these questions. But how have you found building a business in Sweden as an expat?
I think you've got to be persistent with it. A lot of people give up too quickly, or they don't ask for help. That's the other thing I've noticed. Asking for help in Sweden is, I think it's a must. Ask anybody for help. I think that's the hardest part in the beginning, because you feel like you can do it yourself. You think, I know it. I've been in financial service for such a long time, starting off afresh here. But then what I realized was starting afresh here is you've got to use your head a little bit more and look at different areas. And I was very fortunate that when I started again, I started networking. I started going into networking events. And through the networking events, I got clients through that. Then I got referrals through that as well. Then I realized I wasn't using any of the social media to tell people about me. And I realized, how do I go about doing that? In the beginning, I was spending money on marketing. And it was stupid. I was just spending money without getting any results from it. So the idea is, talk to somebody that's already done it. Say, what have you done that's different? And ask people for help that would help you initially to build up your client base. I think that's one thing. The other thing, which I think some people struggle with, if it's a brand new concept they're doing, it could be, I don't know, helping people with their health issues. So I've got a few clients that help people with their food and how they're eating and so forth. A lot of people in this type of profession, they give up their normal job just to do this full time. The clients don't come in that quickly. So one of the things I recommend to people is try to find a job that gives you at least a steady income, 1 or 2 days of an income. So at least, each week you're going to get that. Because again, when you run your own company, it's psychological. When business isn't coming in and money's not coming in, you become desperate. And other people that you're trying to get to come and join your business will also see that you're desperate and won't join you. When you're not desperate for business, more people want to be attracted to you. So as a new person coming in here, don't give up, but ask people for help. That's the key. Don't think that people don't want to help you. There's so many people out there that want to help you. There's lots of networking groups you can join that will help you as well. So I think it's
Yeah, and
important.
you've got quite a niche. Your ICP is very clear, and also the good thing about what you're trying to, or who you're trying to help, is if you have come to Sweden and you're still here, you probably are employed, you probably are of a certain age, your job's probably fairly good. Like pretty much anyone who, if your bulk of your customers are British, then the bulk of those are probably relevant for you. When you know also that they don't have anywhere else really to go in terms of their bank or through other brokers.
That's
So
right.
you've hit a really nice ICP. So you've got marketing you could do, of course, but by doing things like this and following the social media channels, like there's a lot of business out there, a lot of referrals as well that you can get from people, because the community is quite tight.
It is very tight. And that's why you've got to make sure that another important part, which I'm sure you're aware of, you've got to make sure your reputation is always good. You do not want your reputation to go bad. If somebody complains about you, then guess what? Your whole reputation within the Swedish market would go bad. So you don't want to do that. So you just keep everything, make sure you do everything properly. Treat everybody the right way. And you are 100% right. There's so many clients out there I could have. There are so many, because they all need the help. That's why from the 500 clients, as I said, there's probably more than that actually. Majority aren't clients. They're people I keep in touch with. I'm just helping them out to get the foundation in place. Then when they need other help, obviously I'll go to them, they'll come to me. But I also go to them to talk to them about changes that are happening, because the changes happening on the markets. From the UK perspective, domicilities change, national insurance contributions have changed. That's going to make a big difference. In Sweden, we've got the ISKs. Currently, we've got 300,000. That's likely to change as well. So you've got things that are changing all the time. It's nice to have somebody you can just pick the phone up and give them a call and say, right, what do you think I should do for this?
Yeah, that help part is a big one. I spend a lot of time just trying to help. I've only got so much time, but certainly if I can help, I do help. And I wish that everybody always thought that way.
Yeah.
If you have a few moments to try and help somebody out, particularly who maybe doesn't have family here or doesn't have a large social circle, if someone asks the question, can I have an introduction to this company for a job? Or do you know anyone who offers X service? Or I'm looking to get my garage converted, a builder? It doesn't take a lot to be the person to step forward and try and help. Again, if people watch this today and they
Yeah.
think they're in a position where they might be able to point advice or help somebody who asked the question, it doesn't take much to do it.
That's the whole point. That's why what you've been doing, Tony, with helping people out there. I know it's not business that you're doing, just helping people. And that's a great way of being. And I think expats generally, when they're in a foreign country, they want to help other people out. You know, if you come across some, okay, it's not sure if we should be talking about this at this stage, but if you married or living with somebody in Sweden and you're an expat, there's things that you need to put into place. I'm talking about things like a prenup. Sounds weird, I know, but it's something worth thinking about. If you're married and everything, you're happily married and everything, currently happily married, you can actually put things in writing. Say, if we did ever separate, then this is how we'll do it. Because if you try to do it later on, when you do split up, if you split up, guess what? That piece of paper will be a nightmare to get signed. Neither of you will agree it. Always best time to do it is when things are good. So silly things
Mm.
like that I think it's helpful to help clients, because in Sweden, prenups are valid. In the UK, they're not. So you can actually write something down. It's just to make sure that you've got peace of mind here.
Mm.
It's just getting peace of mind in Sweden.
And
Help.
I mean, if you look at the last 12 years in Sweden, you've been quite a few events, whether that's personal or with COVID and the downturn in financial markets. But what's been the hardest period that you have had in the last 12 years?
Personal business.
I guess business related, but if that's personal, it's personal. But certainly business related would be
I think
interesting for anyone watching this who's interested in taking that business and what type of hurdles they might come across.
I think from a business perspective, because my business is affected by the markets. It's not just the individual clients that are affected. It's generally the markets, because that's what I do. I manage clients' investments. They've been pretty volatile. They've been pretty hairy at times. You don't want to lose clients' money. But sometimes, the markets go down. Then I've got to explain to clients that actually the markets have gone down temporarily because of X, Y, and Z, and they will fully recover. So I think that's been, from a business point of view, that's been the toughest part. I think the marketing in the beginning, in the first couple of years, I was spending the money on the wrong things, marketing wise. So that was a bit silly as well. Um, but apart from that, really, it's just a matter of putting time into it. And I've got to do exams and stuff like that, continuous exams. But it's not been that difficult. Personally, I've had personal difficulties, but that's
Mm.
been, family issues and stuff like that. But generally speaking, from a business point of view, it's not been that bad.
Yeah, and you're dealing with money, like people's hard earned cash. So, of course, the market history suggests it's going to go up. It
Yeah.
typically always does. But I guess when you've got someone who maybe is a bit more of a cautious investor, or with no experience of doing this, and then if the markets take a small dip in the first 6 months to a year, I can imagine that's really tough.
It
Like
can be.
when you wake up in the morning, like, oh no, this happened, and you get a few emails in your inbox, and it's a tough one to deal with.
That's why, for me, as I said, the foundation, that's what everybody should concentrate on. You ask one advice for expats. If they're just expat, not running a business, but just expats in Sweden, the most important thing to do is get the foundation in place first. Don't invest any money, just get the foundation in place first. The emergency money, the ISK, and the mortgage. Once you've got that in place, rest of it will be, because then if the markets do go down, you can wait for the markets to recover because you've got enough money in the short term. If you
Mm.
invest money in the long term and the markets go down and you've got no money in the short term, then it will affect you. Then you will be not sleeping very well.
Yeah,
So
I hear you.
it's to make sure we've got the back organized there. I'm just trying to think of more for new businesses. I just think the key for new businesses, just come up with an idea. Don't let, this is again, I'm not being negative towards Sweden, but don't let a Swede tell you that you can't do that because it doesn't work here. Because nobody's tried it here. I came across that. Because before, in 2007, I did have a shop, believe it or not. I know I had a shop in Sveavägen in the centre of Stockholm, recycling.
Doing what? Selling what?
We was recycling ink and toner cartridges. So people
Mm.
would come in with their toners and I would be in the back refilling them and sell it to them at a price. And that was doing okay. But then people were saying to me, oh, you can't do that in Sweden, like a marketing idea I came up with. They would say to me, no, you can't do that in Sweden. I've said, well, why not? Nobody's tried it before. And guess what? It worked. You've got to try different. Sweden has, if you're dealing with Swedish people, they have a different mentality to dealing with expats. So you have to remember that. If you're running your own business, you're dealing with a Swede, it's very different than dealing with an expat. I've had meetings with big companies in Sweden trying to say, I will help your client, your staff with their finances. And what I found after doing these presentations is that normally the CEO needs everybody's permission to say, yes, let's do it. You can't just get one or two people agreeing on it. Everybody has to agree. So if you're dealing with people in Sweden, business in Sweden, remember that everybody has to agree. Once
It's the
they,
same in work. Same in any work environment, I think, as well, Jit, compared to the UK, which is a lot more. The top make the decisions. Here, it's very open
that's
in the
exactly
general
it.
office.
So just bear in mind, but once they make that decision, you're in.
Yeah,
It's getting in
yeah.
that's the hardest part. And, in the old days, when you were in the UK, you'd look at, okay, who's the decision maker in that business? Do you go to them? But in Sweden, it doesn't work. You think that's a decision maker, but that decision maker has to get approval from many other people.
Okay.
But it's a good
Well,
step.
look, getting towards the end here, I want to finish with just a really quick fire Q&A. Answer the best you can. Might be tough because most of the clients that you help are British, but sort of short answers, sort of the most financially responsible nationality that you tend to come across.
There's two ways of looking at this. Swedes are very good at if they're told what to do, they'll just do it. And I think that's fairly good. It's a very conscious way of living, but they don't query it. Whereas I must admit, the French do, well, the French do and the Germans do. The British, not as much. So I would say between the French and the Germans, I reckon they're a lot more conscientious compared to the Brits, unfortunately.
Okay, and I'm guessing the answer might be one here, but in terms of the least financially organised expats, would this be the Brits?
I would say that the Swedes. The only reason I say the Swedes is Swedes have money, but they won't ever go and ask anybody for advice. I've got two Swedish clients that are actually based here in Sweden, but most Swedish people don't ask for help. So I think they're the ones. You'll find that Swedish people will have the same bank as their parents did, generally speaking. You'll find Swedish people won't look at ways of reducing their mortgage down because of the way the system is. And they don't ask for discounts as much as expats do. So from a financially point of view, I would say, I reckon the Swedes they don't ask for help. That's it.
Okay. And one thing, Jit, that every expat in Sweden should do this month.
This month,
Yeah, one thing.
I'll say two things here. One is review their UK pensions. Don't leave it. Because the national insurance contributions, the timescale, we've got 6 years we can fill up. But next year, it's only going to be 5 years we can fill up. And we're going to have problems. So you need to look at your national insurance contribution in the UK now. Don't leave it any later. The second thing, as far as people in Sweden are concerned, that they should act upon is make sure they fully utilize their tax-free savings in Sweden. People don't, believe it or not.
Okay. Pensions, tax-free savings. Got it. This could be personal as well, but best thing about Sweden.
I think the quality of life. And everything's simple. Everything works.
There you go. Simple. And if there was one thing that you could wish you could bring from the UK, is the worst thing about Sweden?
I wish I could bring
The
some
pub,
decent
the
sausages.
pubs,
Decent,
pubs and sausages. Yeah.
yeah, pub sausage and bacon. No, I don't think there's. I think what I would like to bring away from from the UK over to Sweden is people's social aspects. You can talk to anybody. I find it very difficult, unless you're expat, I find it very difficult to talk to Swedish people. So that's the bit I find quite hard. Yeah. People be more sociable.
I think I know the answer to this one. Spurs or Arsenal?
Yeah, you know the answer to that one, Arsenal.
Come on, you
Obviously,
Gunners.
the result this weekend is going to be interesting because Paris are doing well. They've had a good season. So it's going to be a tight match, I think. I hope.
With you there, Jit, gonna have in that crowd going crazy, or in the pubs at least. I think we'll have a good chance.
I think so. With my 16-year-old son as well. That's going to be fun. So yes, it's going to be. One other thing. Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I think for most people, they need to start looking at where their finances are. Oh, here's another important bit that people should do. Okay, I'm sorry, this is the third bit. Okay, you should make a list of all your assets that you've got and liabilities on a single Excel spreadsheet. What pensions you've got, what savings you've got, what bank accounts you've got, any insurance you've got, etc., etc. Because a couple of years ago, I did have a client that passed away. The wife didn't have a bloody clue what the husband had because he had bits and pieces all over the place. And this is how people lose money. So if you've got a single Excel spreadsheet with everything on it, it makes life much, much easier. That's one of the things that I would actually say to people to do this year. sit down and just make a list of everything you've got.
Yeah, look, and I hope that obviously we coming up to the end here. So I'm hoping that anyone who has made it through this session or has seen it on some of the shorts on LinkedIn, YouTube, or whatever other channel, this has probably helped you out in some way. If you do want to take the next step, give Jit a call. As he's mentioned, most of the time we're here just to help. So I'm sure Jit will be very open. You can look him up on LinkedIn and give you a quick message. But look, Jit, it's been fun to
Great.
have this chat with you. And again, I hope it's helped somebody. And yeah, thanks for being part of the series.
No, absolutely happy to help. Happy to help.
We'll have a cracking time in Budapest, and come on, you Gunners.
I am looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Good man. Cheers, Jit.
Bye.
Bye-bye.